Hey folks, I hope you're doing really well. I had a question in the comments about why I chose to be a game designer over other fields in the game industry. And so I figured I'd just kind of talk about how I got started in the industry for a little bit and share that with you because I realized that I haven't yet. When I was younger, I actually dropped out of high school in grade 9. There wasn't a lot of plan there. I just wasn't a very good student. I didn't enjoy school very much. I didn't really like anyone, candidly. I was pretty kind of not isolated. I had a small group of friends, but it just wasn't something that I was enjoying. So as soon as I was able to, I dropped out of high school. Then I kind of just bummed around for a while. I grew up in a town called Adelaide in Australia. I had a couple of very small jobs, McDonald's, stacking shelves at a dollar store. Um, Eventually, my mom put me in this like tech computer thing where I learned very basic just computer skills, like how to use a computer, how to program very basically. I'd had a computer for a long time, like a Commodore 64, never a PC until I started that course. That's when I first actually got my first PC. But I'd played around with computers a lot. I just never really had a lot of access to them. This course, then I managed to graduate from that. It was only like a 6-month thing. And then I got a job as a help desk type person. Ended up working at the Navy for on the Collins class diesel submarines for the Australian Navy, doing help desk and helping with the server setups and maintaining the servers. The general kind of like customer service slash help desk slash sysadmin type role. Around this time, I'd been playing a lot more games because I had access to a PC now. So games like Masters of Orion or Homeworld or Dune or a lot of the games that were coming out at the time. And then a game called Half-Life came out, and Valve released the Half-Life SDK around the same time. And I downloaded it. I was wondering what it was all about. I suddenly kind of clicked and realized that I could make games for a living, or that people actually made games for a living. So I downloaded it. It took many, many days for me to download it. I had like a dial-up modem at home, and my sister would keep picking up the phone so it would get interrupted. And then I just started kind of fooling around with it. Started with the level editor and then started getting into the programming itself. I didn't have a very strong understanding of programming. The programming that we did at the course was super, super simple. So learning C++ and the code that was in the engine for that original Half-Life was a bit of a challenge, but I was able to figure that out. Taught myself how to make levels. I taught myself how to animate. Like I remember animating some guns, downloading, I think it was probably a stolen copy of 3D Studio Max that I downloaded, and taught myself how to make just basic animations with guns. Eventually I made a very basic mod with the Half-Life editor. It was like an Assassin's thing, like 12 players. I was really kind of obsessed with Thief and those kind of like stealth type games. So I made something that I was inspired by. It wasn't great, it was fine, but it certainly wasn't any sort of Counter-Strike or anything. That then, using the Half-Life editor, I made a resume for myself and then sent it out to like 500 different companies. Basically, anytime that I could find any kind of listing for a company, I would send them, or like an email for a company, I would send them an email with my resume attached and sort of just asking like, do you have a job or any job openings? This was a time that there was no LinkedIn. Google, I don't know if there was a Google search at this point. There wasn't YouTube for sure. There wasn't a lot of access. So it really was just about hunt and peck and try and find companies that were looking for people or reach out. It certainly wasn't any companies in my hometown of Adelaide that were making games. Eventually, I got a couple of responses. One was from a company called Wild Tangent. I had actually made a game for them. They were an in-browser 3D type rendering software, and no one had been using them. I made a game, a really simple like Breakout and Pong type game for them. So they were interested, sort of interested, but they were over in San Francisco, and my mum was very hesitant to let me relocate to the other side of the planet. I think I was about 19 or 20 at this time. So I was pretty young still, like living at home. Obviously, I was, only had a basic job. I couldn't afford to move out on my own. But then another company I managed to get another company interested in me, and that was a company called Irrational Games. They offered me a position as a game designer slash systems administrator slash help desk. I would do like 50-50, do some amount of game design and some amount of setting up the computers and computer support and maintaining the servers and all that sort of jazz. So when the question of, what did I want to do? Why did I pick game design? I don't really feel like I picked it. It's more like that's all that I could get at the time. I was sending out resumes as a level designer, as I didn't try to fake it as an engineer. I never thought that I had the programming skills that were needed. Most of the time, I would assume that, you would have needed some sort of computer science degree in order to do that kind of engineering. I also knew that I was more interested in the gameplay side of things and less in the programming, the engineering side of things. I was much more interested in how games came together and what made them work, rather than on the design side, on the play side, as opposed to the creative side, I would say, as opposed to on the engineering side of things, like what the code was or writing efficient code. I was never really interested in that side of thing. I certainly can code, but it wasn't something that I had that passion for. And again, I never went to university because I dropped out of high school in grade 9. So most of the people who were looking for a programmer were looking for someone with a computer science degree. That then set the path for my career because I started working in game design. We were making the characters, we were making the skills for Freedom Force. So that's the game that we were working on. It was like a semi-turn based team tactical game, superhero type thing. Look it up. It's actually pretty fun. I was designing levels and doing the content creation side of things as opposed to the engineering side of things or the art side of things. That's the other thing. I didn't have a strong artistic background. I've just never really been able to draw or, do modeling, or it's just never really been part of my creative bones. Whereas the game design side of things was. And then eventually, Matt ended up moving over to Relic Entertainment, which is how I ended up as a designer there. So when you ask the question of, why did I pick game design? It wasn't really a choice, to be honest. It was more just that was what was available to me at the time. And I had a deep, deep, deep passion to make games. Basically, I was working for the Navy for like 8 to 10 hours a day. And then I was coming home and making a mod for 6 hours a day. And then every weekend I was doing the same thing, just making mods and learning the editor and learning everything that I could about making games. Once it kind of clicked with me that people actually made games for a living, that just became purely my obsession. That is all that I wanted to do. So then it just became a matter of like, I was willing to do anything in order to get into it. And game design was a very natural path for me because I had a sort of a natural instinct to break down and analyze and understand what make games tick. I hope this was interesting. I hope this answered that question for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow.